So, I mean, the mental break was kind of rooted in debt. I mean, it's been on my mind for forever. I do think people who go through psychosis, it's going to be a mix of things that are already in your brain that your brain can pull from to distort reality. So during my psychotic episode, it's so weird to talk about actually, but like the best way I've been able to describe it is it's kind of like you're in a movie and the movie is rooted in reality. And then like something really crazy happens and the main characters are like, we got to go to the cops. And the other one turns to the character and says, we can't go to the cops, they'll never believe us.
It all starts with a single question asked to an anonymous caller. What do you think happens when we die? And from there, the conversation goes in completely unexpected directions. Some speak with certainty, others with doubt. Some are still trying to make sense of it all. I'm Zach Ansell, and this is When We Die Talks, a podcast about death, meaning, and how that shapes the way we live. This podcast was born from my own fears around death and the need to talk about it. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I'm glad you're here. This episode is sponsored by Naya Emberly. We often think of ashes as something that has to stay tucked away in an urn. But what if they could become something you carry with you, close to your heart, every single day? At Naya Emberly, cremains are transformed using a proprietary process into timeless jewelry. Pendants and bracelets that hold both beauty and meaning. It's a way to keep your loved one's presence with you, not hidden on a shelf. Because memories aren't meant to gather dust, they're meant to be lived with. Discover more at nayaemberly.ca or ask your local funeral provider for more info. Hey, welcome back or welcome here if this is your first time. This call starts out a little cautious. You can feel our caller trying to figure out if this is a safe place to talk. And then you can feel them start to trust the space. They share about how they experienced a psychotic break in 2020 and how it changed the way they relate to their own mind and to death. A lot of this call is them trying to put to words something that is really hard to put into words. So I try to listen and create space for them to try to express it in any way that they can. At one point, they say they felt betrayed by their own brain. And I think that's one of those sentences that you can say that you hear, but is really hard to actually grasp. And after that experience, they describe grounding themselves into logic and facts, not as a debate, but as a way to find something steady again. We end up in big places too. Perception, reality, what self means, and the limits of what humans can really understand about nothing. And maybe the most important lesson of all is that sometimes this Barbie is going through it. I promise you'll understand what that means in a bit. If this topic hits close to home, take your time with it. It's a bit heavier, but it's also fascinating. Let's get into the call. I hope you enjoy.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a little bit of a week, but yeah, I'm glad that we're doing this. So thank you for jumping on the phone.
Yeah. Thank you for providing such an intriguing prompt.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting one, and that's actually kind of a perfect place to start. And obviously, this could kick off into a much longer conversation. What made you want to jump on the phone with a stranger and talk about death?
Well, I feel like the only two that want to talk about death are strangers. It's a very taboo topic in today's society.
Yeah.
I've thought about death since a very early age, which feels a little atypical just from what I've gathered from other people's experiences.
Agreed.
It's something that's on my mind often, and my feelings about it have changed over time. And whenever I saw that someone else wanted to talk about that, it was very interesting to me. And I think it's an important topic for our society today as well.
I'm excited because I feel like, number one, your application was very interesting, so I'm excited to dive into what you brought up there. But I would say I feel very similarly, where I felt like I thought about death a lot as a kid, and it freaked me out for a very long time. So it'll be interesting to have a conversation with another person that has that kind of similar background. And I guess I'll jump into kind of some more basic questions first, and maybe just get to know you a little bit before we dive into the full conversation. Maybe you could give us an idea of like roughly where you live or where you're calling from, like city, state, and then the other question, which a lot of people think is the hardest question of the whole thing. What is your favorite book and why?
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I live in the United States. I live in a southern state, Texas to be exact.
Okay.
A larger city. Grew up in a rural area.
Okay. In Texas? Not that it matters, but...
Yes, in Texas.
Okay.
So that's kind of my background. favorite book, it rotates. Today, I would say it's Into Thin Air by John Krakauer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar.
I read a book that was written by another guy on that same expedition, but I haven't read Into Thin Air. I know Krakauer, though.
Okay, yeah, he's a great writer, really great journalist. It's a good read, really great adventure book. Everest has always intrigued me, and it also kind of goes into the ethics of climbing it at all.
Yeah, like not even 20 years ago, like 30 years ago, the ethics of climbing it then, let alone now.
Yeah, there's a lot of trash out there, and people die every year, and it's kind of a touristy thing a little bit, like extreme tourism.
Yeah.
One thing that's very interesting about the book is John, he's an outdoorsman, and he got Outside Magazine to pay for him to go on this expedition. He was going to write a story about it. And the expedition he went on just so happened to be the most deadly in, I can't remember how many years, since the climbing of Everest. So love that book, revisit it, but I don't know. There's so many I could think of for different reasons.
I also love that you answered it with today. This is what it would be. And I feel like that's exactly how I'd answer the question. I do have one book that I always kind of bring up, but it does totally rotate day to day.
What is yours?
My favorite book is
the one that comes up.
A book called Illusions by Richard Bach. It's kind of like a philosophical fiction story. So that's the one I always go back to. But if I wasn't allowed to pick that one, then it would be, I'd have to pull up my phone and look at my Goodreads and see what I have written down as one of my favorites.
All right. So
yeah.
So you have a recent favorite?
See, now you're asking all the hard questions. This isn't fair.
Well, we have to get to know each other a little bit.
That's fair. That is totally fair. I read this probably at the beginning of last year. So it's definitely a little bit further back for me. It might even be 2 years ago. But the first thing that came to my brain was, and it's also another kind of short book called A Short Stay in Hell. And essentially this guy wakes up and he's in the processing room of the afterlife or whatever. And he ends up essentially his quote unquote hell is he has to look through a library that is an infinite library with an infinite number of books essentially to find his life story written exactly as it is. And once he finds that book, he gets to go on to, I don't know if it's described as heaven or not, but he gets to go on to the next life. But it takes years and years and years before he finds a book that even has a word in it. Everything else is just scrambled digits and letters. And so you very quickly realize that he is going to be doing this for eternity, essentially. Yeah, it's another very interesting book. But I think that's probably the one I would mention, and it's kind of topical.
All right, cool. Yeah, that sounds really interesting and terrifying.
It is a little terrifying. But I was going to say, now I feel like I'm going to turn this back on you, and we can just kind of jump into the heart of the conversation. And you can start with, what do you think happens when we die?
All right, here we go.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. Sounds anticlimactic, but I don't think anything happens. Not on a level of human understanding whatsoever.
And I guess my follow-up question to that would be, and partially because I know from your application, why do you feel that way?
Yes. Well, there's a few different layers to that, and I would love to get into part of my application, which I think you may be referencing. I think it's the most logical thing, for one.
Yeah.
I think humans have assigned a spiritual level to death that isn't there. Why do we not grieve the ant, their consciousness, in the same way?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of human ego wrapped around the idea of what happens after. I don't know if you have what I wrote whenever I wrote in. I couldn't find a record of it.
I can pull it up right now. I'm just going to quote exactly what you wrote down. So there's no,
right.
So it doesn't feel like I'm projecting or making any assumptions or anything. So you wrote, I had a psychotic break in 2020. I looked into the void and the void stared back. The experience led me to be a strong atheist.
Yes. The end. Okay, yeah, I think that's a really quick notes version of it because I feel like with anything in life, there's so much nuance to it.
Totally.
But I think the broad scope is there's nothing after this. Where does the candle go whenever it goes out? It is beyond human comprehension.
And to some regards, I guess the way that I look at that in some ways though are those two different things? Like,
how so? What do you mean?
Is it, I would say, my background, and I think partially why I started this is that nothing happens. That is very much what I have believed and felt. And I think that's where a lot of my anxiety came from around death, because imagining that this is it, although that makes life more meaningful and beautiful and all these things, if there is this just like definite end and it's over, I stole this from my dad, but fade to black, game over, that's kind of terrifying. But I think it's interesting with what you're saying is, which I think is, again, exactly like you said, the nuance of it a little bit, the fact that it's beyond human understanding or comprehension. That leads me to think that there is room for that there is something, but we just can't comprehend or understand it. Maybe I'm parsing that out too much, but I think in my head, when I've thought of nothingness, I'm like, it's just done. And so, yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts around that. If that made sense. If it doesn't, I can try to explain more. But
no, I think it makes total sense, and I think that's what also allows the human mind to go a little crazy sometimes.
Yeah,
because there's always the what if.
Yeah,
it's always that little bit of plausibility that can bring you down a rabbit hole. But I do hear what you're saying, and I do agree with you in some ways. So sorry, let me kind of go back, because I feel like it's getting into a lot of really ambiguous and really large constructs talking about it. But
we can also go there too. This is you get to guide this.
All right. Is there something? Yes, maybe, but does it even matter?
That's interesting.
Does it have an effect?
What do you think?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think if you know or you don't, it doesn't matter. But humans want to know.
Because we're just gone.
Yeah, we're just gone. How do you wrap your brain around it? We're one of the only animals that can perceive time in this way, that understands.
Yeah.
Conceptualizes the future. So I think we get in our heads a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I do. And I don't think I'm alone. But yeah, I absolutely.
You're not.
We're like, at least the two of us know for sure that it's very easy to get up in your head about it. And so for you, does that, at least at this point, from the one that I'm very curious about is the statement of the void, I'm very curious about that. But in general, does this in 2026, does that create fear, anxiety? What's your relationship with death?
I used to be really scared of it. Very, very scared of it. And I also grew up in a Christian household.
Okay.
Which ironically, the thought of eternity also terrified me.
Yeah. I mean, to my point, my kind of book add in is that eternity is a really long time, everyone. That's also very terrifying. So I'm right there with you too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think that's a great tie-in to kind of what we're talking about. But as a child, just the death, not death, was very scary to me. And I grew further and further away from religion after I graduated high school, but I was still agnostic for a long time. And it was always very comforting to think that I was going to live on in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Or there was going to be something else. It was very comforting to me, and it felt like that was a purposeful thing, even if I didn't understand it was in my life.
Yeah.
And then after I had a mental breakdown. I was insane, completely insane. And something that really helped my healing and recovery was becoming an atheist. Because whenever you lose your mind, the way that, at least in my experience, to get back to that was to live a life grounded in logic, no magical thinking. It was very helpful to me, but it was also very painful to me, because then at the same time, I recognized that I would be gone after this. And it really didn't. It does matter. It doesn't matter. There's a very big quantum soup going on, but for the purposes of my life and what's going on, this is it.
Yeah, it does matter at that level.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does matter. So on some level, it does matter. Life does matter.
Yeah.
There is a meaning to life, but what is that meaning? Is it just for us to eat, to sleep, to reproduce? Humans want it to be something higher, but is it?
Oh, that's very interesting.
I'm still grappling and navigating with that experience.
Yeah.
It's something I am open to talking about, but sometimes the words, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
Too, so yeah.
we're just on this journey together and we're going to see where it goes between two strangers. One of the questions I have around it is, was it tied to your thoughts around death, or was it a much bigger thing, and becoming an atheist kind of was able to ground you, or rooting in atheism was able to ground you, or like, was it something else?
Well, I'm going to do my best to answer.
Yeah, totally. And if it doesn't make sense, or if it, if you're like, we can always rephrase. We can always work around it or cut stuff out or whatever it needs to be.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I thought could you rephrase the question you had asked? Because I feel like I was just like totally not zoned out, but I was trying to pay attention to too many things at once.
Totally. And I'll try not to ramble. I have a propensity to ramble and dance around my questions and try to make it make sense. And so I think really to like root into it was like, was this from looking at death and like having this mental break from thinking about death, or is this more complicated than that? And that's a terrible way of phrasing it, but.
Okay, I'm going to try to answer. So, I mean, the mental break was kind of rooted in death. I mean, it's been on my mind for forever.
Yeah.
I do think people who go through psychosis, it's going to be a mix of things that are already in your brain.
Yeah.
That your brain can pull from to distort reality. So during my psychotic episode, I did think I was going to die, and it felt very real to me. It's so weird to talk about, actually.
I bet.
But it's super crazy. Like, the best way I've been able to describe it is it's kind of like you're in a movie where, something like really weird happens and the movie's rooted in reality. And then like something really crazy happens and the main characters are like, we got to go to the cops. And the other one turns to the character and says, we can't go to the cops, they'll never believe us.
Yeah.
But the actions of the movie are still happening.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of like what it was. And my break from reality was on a severely cosmological scale. I'm going to probably ramble a little bit too during this.
That's okay.
So please feel free to cut
I feel
me
like
off.
I think it's better when you ramble than when I ramble.
So kind of to give you an idea where my headspace was, I thought I had solved the paradox between string theory and quantum physics, I want to say.
Okay.
Because they're two competing theories.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could be mixing some of this up, which is also why I was psychotic, because I don't have a degree in any of this stuff.
Okay. I was going to ask about kind of background there, but okay.
No, I don't. I do really love science, and I like I was reading, I can't even remember the name of the book, but it's like time, space, time dilation, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Which there is proof for, and I feel like some people use to start to delve into different realities in that way.
Yeah, totally.
Which I feel like some people view as a type. Yeah, so that's like a whole nother string, like rabbit hole that you can go down on it.
Yeah.
But over the course of about 6 months, I started to believe that my body was getting eaten from the inside by these millions of just like hairs wrapped around themselves that were forming beneath my skin. Mm-hmm. And we're slowly eating the fabric of space-time.
That's quite a description. That paints a picture for sure.
I always feel like weird saying it because it sounds crazy, and it is.
But it's also your experience, right?
Terrifying.
Yes. I don't know. I would say, there's no judgment on this end. I just think it's interesting to hear people talk about their experiences, and it's like, this is what you experienced. It was your reality.
Right. Man, and I think you kind of get down to like what it is. That's something I've struggled with a lot is it wasn't reality, but it also was.
Totally.
So like your perception does shape the way your reality is.
Absolutely.
And then you have to distinguish between your reality and objective reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very terrifying experience. Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have like a little bit of some defenses up about it still sometimes. So I'm like, no, it's okay. Or that was wild, right? But it was a very scary time. I was mutilating myself, trying to get rid of this thing that was happening to me.
Yeah.
Like trying to like draw out the poison, I guess you could say. But in reality, it was just like these hairs. And I would kind of see these hairs too as like sometimes they would take on the shape like it was like I was looking at a black hole. It's like I was seeing like all these like cosmological signs to like even in the smallest thing, I was also seeing like the relation back to like the Big Bang Theory.
Like everything.
Like
you're seeing everything and something.
Seeing like the echoes.
Yeah. And that's wild.
Yeah. And it accumulated with me. I mean, this went on for a few months, and at first I like hid it some because I was aware it's still kind of a weird experience too, because I feel like logically there was a part of me that like still knew it was very strange.
Yeah.
So I would intentionally not talk to people about it. But as time went on, and there was more signs that were showing me irrefutable proof that like, no, this was actually happening, I became more and more distressed until I came to a point where I was just like hysterical and I just was waiting for our world to completely blip out of existence because I knew that was what was going to happen one day. I could see it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, number one, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I'm glad that you're doing better now, because I can't.
Thank you.
I can't imagine. I mean, and nobody can, right? But it sounds like such a terrifying experience.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy I'm doing better too. I honestly never thought I would be where I am right now after I gained enough insight to recognize that like the world wasn't ending tomorrow and all these things, like, because I had hallucinations. There's a lot of things I could go into that I don't know. Feel free to ask me what you'd like to ask me, but also I know we're here to talk about death.
I mean, this all connects in ways for sure.
It definitely does, which is I think that's something about life. Like there are connections and there is beauty in it. But anyways, after I gained enough insight to recognize that like, oh, like objective reality is different than my reality. Like this reality I can still see and I'm still like living in this reality, but no one else is. I had to come to a space of acceptance where that's just like, I was just going to be doomed to live between these like half worlds, like in one world and in another.
Oof.
Yeah. But surprisingly, like once I like accepted it, it made everything so much better and easier. It was like I wasn't fighting it anymore.
Yeah.
I was just learning how to deal with it.
Which is wild, right? I mean, that's life, right? That's life in general. Is we fight so many things, and it's like the moment that we accept things, and that's that was a very vague statement, but yeah, when acceptance happens, there's so much that drops away. Yes,
it's the yin and the yang.
Yeah,
there's a paradox to life, and there's these. Yeah, once you like accept it and let it go, it's like that the load seems so much lighter.
Yeah,
even if it's the same as it was before. So
yes,
that was like really helpful, and I'm pretty far along in my recovery. It's an experience that sits with me, and time stretched on for a really long time for me.
Yeah,
at that
I'm sure.
It really felt like a million years. I didn't think I was ever going to get out. And really, like, once you start to get into, like, some of that, like, if you get into too much paradoxical thinking or start to believe in some sort of thing, like, there is a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
There is a void that you
deep.
Begin to look at. It's endless.
Yeah.
It's endless, which is why it can be dangerous sometimes.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So there's an art to it.
Easy to detach from reality, right? When you go down the rabbit hole and lose yourself.
Yes, I think so. And I think too, that's what kind of made me like go full on atheist too, is because like all of these things I would see with people with psychosis where they're like illustrating like, oh, I got this sign, so this means this. Or like someone saying, God told me this, so I'm doing this. Like I would see this and it just made me think like, oh, this is what people want. And they're assigning a deity or a spirit or something like that to these things. Like I don't think humans have any. I think we can rule out any human theory on what happens after we die.
See, you're answering all my questions along the way. Like I was going to ask you about the void a second ago, and you started talking about that a little bit. And then I was going to bring it back to death by asking about how this kind of moved you toward atheism. And you answered that. So see, you're making my job really easy.
You're hurting me along.
I'm trying to. I feel like that's kind of what I tell people is like, you're steering the ship and I'm just kind of like, maybe pointing out things like, you know, let's not hit that thing over there. Not that we're going to hit anything, but yeah, I'm just kind of guiding it along. But yeah, I think you hit kind of all the big things. You know, I've talked to almost 50 anonymous people through this, and I think a lot of people kind of land in the atheist agnostic. There might be, there might not be, but I think you're the first person, which was also very interesting from your application of this led me to being I don't want to misquote, but I don't remember, I'm sorry, but like a staunch or strict atheist. So I actually love that about your application, and the story that you're telling is like this experience led to it because yeah, we're humans. We want to create meaning out of this. We want this to mean something, and we want to know that In a lot of cases with all, with, I don't want to say all organized religion, but I would say from what I know about organized religion, that there is something else. Like that's part of the prescription. And so, yeah, I think it's very interesting to hear from you to be, hey, this experience led to me being very strictly atheist.
Yes. Strong atheist now. Succumb to the void. Death is a kindness. There's nothing else out there.
Just summing it up right there. Beautifully said.
I guess so. Yeah, I feel like we can get into quantum reasons why there's something there, but I don't think I don't think it's gonna matter. I think the way a human dies is the same way a snake dies.
Yeah.
Or a mouse dies, or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like if there is quote unquote something else, it's very similar to what you're saying. It's on a level that we can't comprehend because it doesn't involve self, if that's the word that you want to use, or I think ego's become this like really big word that everybody uses now. But like if there is more than it's, just going back to like a pool of consciousness that everything exists, with consciousness at some capacity. So yeah, I think we're aligned in a lot of ways. I do have another question, but it's going to take us in a completely different direction. So I don't want to cut off if you have some like amazing insight at this moment.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll lead into your next question or not, but
if it does, I'm going to be very impressed.
Okay, let's see where it goes. Yeah, we can agree on some things. I think most of the philosophical humans I meet, like, they believe in the here and now.
Yep.
Like, we may disagree on some other things too, but I think the here and now it's not nothing.
Yeah.
And I think some people understand, and I think that's a good common ground to meet. Consciousness, man, that's a whole nother big thing. But I think,
Totally.
I think we just go back into the environment. And I think that in that way, there is an afterlife where it's like there is a beauty in this system.
Yeah.
Where there is no waste. I mean, we can argue to like some human, like man-made stuff, but
Yeah.
it's like, it's a very beautiful system that is set up. It's got life and death and beauty and drama. And I don't know, there's just so many things that are happening in our world. And like, we just may not be conscious in the human way to experience it, but it is all around us all the time.
Yeah.
The markers of our past.
Yeah. That was beautiful. I like that a lot. But it didn't answer my question because I'm going to go a completely different direction. Obviously, we're different humans. We have different experiences and different thoughts. I think we align in some things. And that's why I kind of wanted to go back to one of the things that you said at the very beginning, which was, death was something that you thought about when you were young. And yeah, that's not something that I feel like I've come across a lot either. And maybe other people have had that experience, but they just don't talk about it. But I'm curious of like what that was like for you growing up. How did that manifest, I guess?
I think subconsciously it made me scared to go to bed at night. I do remember it made me a very anxious child. And I remember like watching my sister sleep and just like making sure she was breathing, because I was just like very acutely aware that at any time something, like the thought of just like moments was very like hard for me. And I think like it resulted in some like obsessive compulsive behaviors as I got older too, like trying to control that which cannot be.
Yeah.
The randomness to life. But yeah, so it kind of, I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but it did like kind of make me like an anxious kid. I had a similar experience to you where I feel like I was just thinking of all these like deep or super like existential type like things. And whenever I talked to my friends, I was just like not even on their radar.
Like,
and it was like, I just don't want to bum everyone out.
We're playing with Legos. Like, what's going on? But what happens when a Lego dies?
Like, our Barbies, our Barbies are supposed to be going to the movies. It's like, no, this Barbie is going through it.
This Barbie's a mess, okay?
Yeah, so
let her have her day.
Going through an ego death, okay? It happens. So yeah, I kind of have a similar experience. There's a few friends I met over the years that I'm thankful that do like to have conversations like this, but I don't think a lot of people are thinking about it. I think people don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Death is scary.
Yeah, we're definitely all going to go through it. I think that's what I come up a lot against is superstition to some extent. And maybe that's a too big of a blanket word, but if I talk about it, then it's going to bring the energies of death near me and it's going to happen. So I don't want to talk about it.
Completely. This is a worthwhile topic, We're all going to go through it. And I personally feel like a lot of people's hesitancy to really think about those kind of things is a detriment to our current society. Because if there's another world or there's another life or whatever, I'm just going to go to heaven. What motivation do you have to make things better right now?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it seems like very defeatist sometimes, my personal opinion.
Yeah.
On it.
And that's what we're here for, is your personal opinion. So shout it.
Yeah, I think so. My belief, especially with being betrayed by my own mind, it really like fucked me up, like not being able to trust yourself at all. But I do have a belief, and it's in the here and now.
Yeah.
This really the present moment is all that matters.
You're speaking my language, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I think Ram Dass has like a quote about, and this is a very abbreviated version of it, but like, time is a box, and so much of how people live is in the past and the future, which I understand that the past and the future exist in ways, but we never live in the past or the future. The only thing that we ever live in is right now, forever. Well, until we die. But like,
until we die. Yeah.
There is, and it is semantics or whatever you want to say, but like, there really is no past and there really is no future. They're ideas that, your brain constructs in ways like, and of course it's very nuanced, but I very much agree with the here and now is all that we have.
Exactly. I think kind of what you were talking about, the past and the future, they're forms of consciousness.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we could like start to get into like space time, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, there's really you don't really jump into other small topics when you talk about death, right? It's like, okay, well then let's talk about identity and self. Okay, well that's another big topic, or time, or all these things.
There are, and I feel like I may be jumping like too far, like too fast on it. But yeah, I think the past and the future, the human mind we can understand them, but as far as like our physical bodies, like there's no other plane of reality that we can exist in.
Yeah.
It's only this one.
And to your story, right? Your brain can also manipulate that, right? That information of the past and the future. And there's the studies of when you go back for memories, it alters them.
So yeah, perception is reality, but perception also isn't reality, and perception influences reality. It's kind of like the snake eating itself.
Yeah.
I do think about the infinity like loop a lot. I do think like there's something to that.
Yeah.
Like I think on a cosmic scale, what's it all about? I'm not sure, but there are like things that repeat in nature. And I think you can kind of go down too much of a rabbit hole on that, but it is interesting how those things come up. But yes, human perception totally. I mean, you've seen that in police lineups too, where it's like they ID the wrong person. Like you just don't see, like our memories aren't the best gauge for reality always.
Absolutely.
But our brains influence how we interact with reality. So it is in fact our reality sometimes.
And once again, that you just go in circles, right? Which is the crazy thing about it.
Exactly. There has to be an end.
Yep. Sometimes it's like, I'm just going to take a step back because you can just spin out forever. I do have one last question for you, but I think I just want to like circle back one more time and just say, I'm so glad that you're doing better. And it seems like you're in a good place or a better place now.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for giving me a platform too. I hope there's a ton I can share about that experience. I'm just still trying to work through it myself. But yes, doing a lot better. I would never wish it on anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm doing a lot better. I'm stronger than I was before. I'm in the here and now with you, my friend.
Yeah.
I'm not on any other planet. So I'm really thankful every day that I am sane. So yeah, so thank you. Thank you for your well wishes. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was a really wild experience, and it just made me very empathetic to anyone with schizophrenia or something like that, because it's hard to understand until you've been through it. And now it's like, I get it, if that makes sense.
It does. Well, it does as much as it can, right? I understand as much as I possibly can, and there's still a disconnect there, but I am compassionate to what you've been through. And yeah, I'm glad that you're doing better. So that's good. I will now ask my final question. What's one thing you still want to experience in this life?
I don't know if there's necessarily an experience or not, but right now, the thing that's on my mind is becoming bilingual.
Oh, nice.
I have started taking classes, and I really don't want to take my brain for granted anymore. And I'm really starting to do some other things. So right now my answer is it's not necessarily an experience. So that's a goal. That's something I'm like working towards that I would like to do in my life.
What language?
Espanol.
Nice.
Spanish.
Nice.
Very big Spanish community here. So working on that. But yeah, besides that, I'm not really sure. After my breakdown, I kind of went into a full on, sorry, I feel like it's going like really like downhill, but I was like super depressed for several years. I kind of was just like, I'm ready to die. So I'm like still digging out of that hole. Like if I would have talked to you a year ago, I'm like, I'll just be on my couch. So like I haven't really thought a lot about a ton of like big goals or like things I want to do. But maybe I'll reflect on that some more. I probably need to have some more things to work towards.
Maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. I like your answer of just like, there's an aspect of it that is, I want to experience being able to communicate in Spanish with others. That is something.
I want to switch my brain back and forth.
Yeah. I think that's,
I want to see what it feels like.
I think that's an amazing thing. I'm also in a place where I've gone back and forth a couple times in my life. You know, I learned Spanish in high school when it was like, you know, you got to do it for college. And so it's like, you don't really, or at least I didn't. It was like, this isn't to learn Spanish. This is to get into college, you know? So it was, you know, I remember some stuff. And then a couple years ago, I was traveling to Mexico quite a bit. And I was like, I just want to be able to communicate. And I, took lessons, I don't know, for like 3 years. And I was by no means fluent, but, I could communicate. And then I just stopped. And it's been a goal for me recently too, to pick Spanish back up and try to, I got it. You know what? The experience is, we're going to do another call. It's probably going to have to be in a while, maybe like 10 years. And we're going to do it in all Spanish. That's what's going to happen.
Bueno. Perfecto.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for being willing to do this. I can tell that, this is, we talked about some hard things for you. And so I just want to say thank you for being willing to be vulnerable and talk to me and share your story. I think it's important to talk about not only death, but just all of these things. Like, I don't know, I think we've gotten to a weird place in the world where, because now we look at everybody as like a little, circle icon on social media or whatever. It's like we've kind of lost some humanity, and just having these conversations, yes, they're about death, but they're also about life and just what other humans are going through. And so I'm extremely grateful to you for being willing to share your story and open up. It means a lot.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Community. I think we've lost a lot of community and humans talking to each other. That's what else is there. So yeah, thanks for your well wishes. And it's something that I'm not opposed to talking about. It's just very bizarre and hard to explain.
Yeah, you're still processing
and I get in my head about it. But so yeah, happy to share. And again, I think this is a great discussion to have.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And we'll definitely stay in touch, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye. I just want to say thank you again to this caller. This can't be an easy thing to talk about, and the fact that they were willing to share it with a complete stranger in a way that was as honest as it was is something I don't take lightly. I really, truly am grateful. I also want to share one thing they said to me after we stopped recording. I don't usually mention what happens after the call, but this made me genuinely happy. They said, "I enjoy life now. I didn't think I would ever enjoy it again." That line just makes me smile. And it's a good reminder that even when someone is still working through something, it doesn't mean that the story is only dark. Sometimes there's real relief in there too. One last thing before I go, I've been getting a lot of positive feedback about the Saturday contemplations lately. A couple recent callers have brought them up, and I've gotten messages from a few listeners too. I'm really glad that they're landing because I really enjoy creating them. Someone also asked me recently if I'd ever do personalized contemplations for people going through a hard season. I love that idea, and I'm going to spend some time thinking about how I can make that possible. If that's something you'd be interested in too, just reach out and let me know. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks for listening to this episode of When We Die Talks. These conversations don't offer answers, but they do open space. space to reflect, to feel less alone, and maybe to see things a little bit differently than before. If you'd like to explore your own beliefs out loud, you can apply to be an anonymous caller at whenwedietalks.com. And if a full call feels like too much, the voicemail is always open. Leave a message at 971-328-0864 and share whatever death has stirred in your life. Listener support truly helps keep this project going. If you'd like to support the podcast, you'll find a link in the show notes. And as always, please like, share, and follow. Every bit makes a difference. Until next time, have a good life.